are celebrating the completion of construction of facilities to remedy one of the largest contaminated groundwater sites in the EPA's history.
Construction completion is important because it signifies to the community that we've done everything possible in constructing the remediation systems and that everything is operating effectively and efficiently.
Systems to clean up the soil and groundwater are up and running. Groundwater is being treated in plants in Scottsdale and Paradise Valley and is now being served as clean, safe drinking water to thousands of local residents. The arrival of the semiconductor industry to portions of Scottsdale and Tempe in the 1950s helped fuel explosive population growth that continues to this day. The booming population, coupled with the dry desert environment, made this groundwater reclamation project extremely important.
The drinking water supplies in those areas are very highly valued and are of a concern.
The 13 square mile site was first given Superfund status in 1983 and contained dozens of facilities and numerous groundwater plumes containing a man-made chemical used primarily as a degreasing solvent called trichloroethylene, or TCE. The biggest plume stretched almost 5 miles in length.
Once it was in the dry wells, then the dry wells were unlined, and so the TCE, the solvent, would eventually migrate down through the soil and enter into the groundwater table. Because the Indian Bin Wash Superfund site was so big and complex, EPA decided early on to split the site up into 2 different study areas.
So the obvious injustice in this situation would be an issue of sustainability. Once the chemicals began to leak and contaminated the groundwater, there was a need to make change immediately. At the time, the groundwater wasn't being monitored, so the pollution continued. Years later, when the pollution was discovered, there was already so much harm done that the water supply to the people of the surrounding area needed to be cut off. There was so much pollution, it even affected the soil and made it unusable in any capacity. There was so much pollution done that it even affected the soil and made it unusable at any capacity. This negatively affected the entire population of that area, along with some of northern parts of Tempe, where the current soil filtering unit is. If the pollution was not noticed when it was and no changes were made, it had the potential to continue spreading and affecting the groundwater of neighboring cities throughout Arizona. There were several major corporations that benefited from the disposing of their waste irresponsibly. In the area, the 3 major corporations were Motorola, Siemens, and GlaxoSmithKline. These companies potentially saved millions. There are no specific statistics because they did not keep track of how much waste that they were dumping. This benefited the companies production-wise. They were able to produce more product without having to worry about the effects of the chemicals that were being dumped. If they were responsible for the waste, it would have slowed down the production of their merchandise. If they had been responsible for their waste products, it would have slowed down the production of their merchandise, thus creating a need to efficiently and effectively dispose of their chemicals in an environmentally responsible way.
Okay, so on a Sunday as a group, we decided to go and see these locations about the Superfund. By Pimo Park was one location. What we are looking at right now is the former site of the Motorola site where they were dumping the harmful chemicals into the soil and unknowingly. This is the Scottsdale wastewater operations facility, and just right next to Pimo Pump 1, and it's right next to Pimo Park, which we found was pretty alarming because, you know, kids, as you can see right now, kids are playing in a park with water, and the location is in the suburbs. It's right next to residents where possible contamination that most of them unknowingly know that what had happened 30 years ago when the chemicals were being dumped, and it was just a very big concern that we all had.
we were chatting.
So to sum everything up, as you know, we all know that this is a very bad incident that has occurred. We and the EPA did a 5-year study that, you know, things were complete and they were doing everything necessary. But really, how safe is it? Because when we were digging up some research, we found that in 2007 that there was a failure in one of the pumps that started to leak the harmful chemicals back in the soil, and it was a very alarming thing that when we were reading, we were just blown away. The fact that they only do these studies every 5 years, it's raised for concern. We feel that you should do maybe every 6 months to have more of a maintenance and more of a public awareness on what's really going on, because things do fail, parts do fail, and it's a very harmful chemical that affects thousands of people's and anybody who goes around that area, and it can be disastrous for generations to come.